In 1943, in a park in Haarlem, Netherlands, a scene unfolded that would become emblematic of the Dutch resistance. A teenage girl with braided pigtails approached a woman sitting alone on a bench. The girl appeared to be approximately 12 years old, presenting an innocent and harmless demeanor. After inquiring about the woman's name and confirming her identity, the girl drew a pistol and fatally shot her target. She then departed on her bicycle. The girl was Freddy Oversteegen, 16 years old, and the woman she had executed was a Dutch collaborator who possessed a comprehensive list of Jewish residents in the region, complete with names and addresses. This list was scheduled to be delivered to the Nazi authorities, which would have resulted in the deaths of hundreds of innocent people. Through this single action, Freddy had preserved countless lives. By the conclusion of World War II, Freddy and her sister Truus would be responsible for assassinating dozens of Nazis and collaborators, though the precise number remains unknown. When questioned about this, Freddy consistently maintained that such inquiries should not be directed at soldiers. This is the account of two teenage sisters who employed seduction tactics against Nazi officers, lured them into forested areas, and executed them. These were young women who received weapons training in an underground potato storage facility. They were individuals who declined to harm children, even those of their adversaries. They were fighters who maintained their humanity while confronting those who had abandoned theirs. Freddy Oversteegen entered the world in 1925 in the village of Schoten, located just outside Haarlem. Her family life did not conform to conventional norms. They resided on a houseboat, and her father's income was modest at best. Her mother, Treintje, was a committed communist who held firm beliefs about confronting injustice through action rather than passive observation. Following her parents' divorce during Freddy's youth, her father performed a French farewell song from the vessel's bow as they departed, and Freddy had minimal contact with him thereafter. Treintje relocated her two daughters to a small apartment in Haarlem, where they slept on mattresses filled with straw. Despite their meager possessions, their mother consistently made accommodations for others in need. The apartment became a refuge for Jewish individuals fleeing Germany and political dissidents escaping Nazi persecution. Freddy and Truus developed an understanding of sharing their living space with strangers whose identities they sometimes never learned. They created dolls for children affected by the Spanish Civil War and absorbed the principle that certain causes transcend personal comfort. Their mother instilled in them a fundamental lesson about the necessity of personal sacrifice when assisting others, a teaching that would profoundly influence their future actions. On May 10, 1940, Nazi Germany initiated its invasion of the Netherlands. The Dutch military forces maintained resistance for 5 days before capitulating. Freddy was 14 years old and Truus was 16. The occupation commenced immediately, with German soldiers occupying the streets, Nazi flags displayed on buildings, and new regulations, restrictions, and anxieties becoming part of daily life. Freddy retained vivid memories of people being forcibly removed from their residences, with Germans creating disturbances by striking doors with rifle butts and shouting, creating an atmosphere of terror throughout entire neighborhoods. Rather than retreat, the Oversteegen family chose active resistance. Freddy and Truus joined their mother in distributing anti-Nazi pamphlets and illegal newspapers. During nighttime hours, they moved through the streets, applying paste and paper to cover German propaganda posters with their own messaging, which emphasized Dutch freedom and discouraged Dutch citizens from working in Germany, as each Dutch worker there enabled a German soldier to serve at the front. They would then escape quickly on their bicycles, aware that discovery would result in execution. Their youth and mode of transportation, however, deflected suspicion effectively. Their activities attracted attention from resistance organizers. In 1941, Franz von der Wiel, commander of the Harlem Council of Resistance and part of the underground network opposing Nazi occupation, appeared at their residence. Having learned of the Oversteegen family's activities and their assistance to refugees, he sought to recruit them. He consulted with Truus about her daughters joining the resistance. Despite Freddy being only 14 and Truus 16, their mother consented, as did the girls themselves. Vanderweel required assurance of their trustworthiness and ability to withstand pressure. He implemented a test by returning to their apartment days later, this time disguised as a Gestapo officer. He entered forcefully, brandishing a weapon and demanding in German to know the location of a hidden Jewish man. Freddy and Truus maintained their composure and refused to divulge any information. Instead, they physically resisted the individual they believed to be a Nazi, demonstrating their willingness to face death rather than betray anyone. Vanderweel concluded the performance and revealed his true identity, confirming they had passed his evaluation. He then explained the actual responsibilities of resistance membership. They would receive training in sabotaging bridges and railway infrastructure, and they would learn to eliminate Nazis. Truus observed her younger sister's reaction as Freddy responded with interest in this novel experience. Before they departed, their mother provided them with singular guidance to always maintain their humanity. The Oversteegen sisters received weapons training in an underground potato storage facility, where they learned firing techniques, aiming procedures, emotional control, and lethal force application. Their initial assignment involved arson rather than assassination. Nazi warehouses required destruction, but SS soldiers guarded them. The operational plan utilized Freddy and Truus to approach and engage the guards through conversation and flirtation, providing distraction while other resistance members infiltrated from behind to set fires. The operation succeeded perfectly, with the warehouses destroyed and the guards remaining unaware of the two teenage girls' involvement. Vanderweel recognized their unique capabilities. These young women could access locations and approach targets that would be impossible for male operatives. Their youth and appearance of innocence functioned as weapons surpassing conventional arms in effectiveness. The time had arrived for them to comprehend the full implications of this advantage. Freddy's first assassination target was not a German soldier, but rather a Dutch woman. The resistance had obtained intelligence regarding a collaborator who had compiled a comprehensive list of Jewish residents in the region. This individual planned to deliver this information to German authorities, which constituted a death sentence for hundreds of people, including entire families, who would face roundup, deportation, and murder. The resistance assigned this mission to Freddy. She traveled by bicycle to a public park where the target would be present. Upon locating the woman on a bench, she approached with casual innocence, appearing as merely a girl with braided hair. After confirming the target's identity through conversation, she drew her pistol and fired. After the woman's collapse, Freddy departed on her bicycle. She later described the psychological aftermath, noting that the immediate instinct after shooting someone was to assist them, an impulse that persisted no matter how many times she performed such actions. Freddy and Truus developed specialized techniques through experience, sometimes operating independently and sometimes collaboratively. Their methodologies evolved based on effectiveness. One approach involved visiting establishments frequented by German officers. A sister would enter alone, initiate conversation with an officer, and suggest a walk in the woods. Officers invariably accepted such invitations. As they proceeded deeper into the forest, away from roads and witnesses, the other sister would be positioned in waiting. A single shot to the head would fell the officer, who would be left in a pre-excavated location, while the sisters departed by bicycle. Alternative methods emphasized speed. Truus would operate the bicycle while Freddy rode on the back with a pistol ready. After identifying a target walking on the street, they would ride past and Freddy would fire, then continue riding without drawing attention. As Truus later explained, they consistently used bicycles rather than walking due to the danger, and she ensured safe conditions, which proved highly effective. Another technique involved following targets to learn their addresses and routines, then appearing at their doors. When answered, the target would encounter what appeared to be a harmless young girl, realizing the danger too late to respond. In 1943, a third member joined their unit. Hannie Schaft, known to everyone as Hannie, came from a middle-class background with a father who worked as a teacher. She had been studying law at the University of Amsterdam with intentions of becoming a human rights lawyer. When Nazi authorities demanded all students sign a loyalty pledge to Germany, Hannie refused and faced expulsion. Rather than return home, she joined the resistance. Hannie possessed distinctive physical characteristics that made her memorable: bright red hair, green eyes, and pale skin. These features would ultimately contribute to her death, but first she would establish herself as one of the Netherlands' most formidable resistance fighters. Van der Wiel tested her using the same method employed with the Oversteegen sisters, providing her with a gun and sending her to assassinate a Nazi officer. She approached the target and raised the weapon with shaking hands, pulling the trigger to hear only a click. The gun had been empty as part of the test. The Nazi officer revealed himself as Van der Wiel, and she had passed the evaluation, joining Freddy and Truus. The three young women formed an exceptionally effective unit. Hannie served as the intellectual and planner who analyzed every detail. Truus functioned as the leader, making decisive and fearless determinations. Freddy operated as the scout, mapping locations in advance and identifying all potential escape routes. Their combined efforts proved formidable. Their activities extended beyond assassination. They destroyed railway lines to prevent deportation trains from transporting Jews to concentration camps. They smuggled Jewish children across borders during nighttime hours. They obtained and forged identity papers to help refugees disappear. They collected intelligence on German troop movements and transmitted it to Allied forces. They eliminated German soldiers, Nazi officers, and Dutch collaborators. The collaborators often presented the most dangerous targets, being Dutch citizens who betrayed their compatriots for financial gain or power, reported their Jewish neighbors, and worked for the Gestapo. Freddy and Truus increasingly focused on these traitors as the war progressed. Truus later explained that they were addressing cancerous elements in society that required surgical removal, as arrest and trial were not feasible options. One day, an order arrived from resistance leadership. The target was Arthur Seyss-Inquart, the Reich Commissioner of the Netherlands and one of the country's most powerful Nazis. The mission involved kidnapping his children to use as leverage for releasing resistance prisoners, with instructions to kill the children if he refused. Freddy, Truus, and Hannie rejected this mission, with Freddy stating they were not comparable to Hitler's followers, and that resistance fighters do not murder children. Despite having killed many people and knowing they would kill more, children represented an inviolable boundary. This distinction separated resistance from terrorism and fighting evil from becoming it, a line they would not cross. Truus was cycling through the streets one afternoon when she witnessed an event that would remain with her permanently. A Dutch SS soldier, a Dutchman who had enlisted with Nazi forces, had seized an infant from a family. The father and the baby's sister were present, expressing hysterical distress. The soldier raised the infant and struck it against a wall, resulting in immediate death. Truus stopped her bicycle, drew her pistol, and shot the soldier in the middle of the street. This was not an assigned mission with orders, but rather a spontaneous action she later stated she did not regret, recognizing that certain situations do not require authorization. By 1944, Hannie Schaft had become one of the Netherlands' most wanted individuals. Her red hair had been observed at numerous incidents, witnesses had provided descriptions, and information had circulated. The Nazis issued a bulletin seeking the girl with red hair. Hannie dyed her hair black, began wearing glasses, and altered her appearance as much as possible, but continued her resistance activities. In June 1944, Hannie and fellow resistance fighter Jan Bonekamp received an assignment to eliminate a Dutch collaborator named Willem Rigaud. They located him, and Bonekamp fired, but Rigaud did not die immediately. During the resulting chaos, Bonekamp sustained a gunshot wound to the stomach. Hannie escaped while Bonekamp was captured and transported to a hospital in critical condition. The Nazis interrogated him, and he refused to provide information. Then they employed a different strategy, with an officer pretending to be a resistance member and offering assistance. Bonekamp, in a delirious state from blood loss and medication, believed this deception and revealed Hannie's address before dying shortly thereafter. The Nazis raided Hannie's parents' residence, arresting her mother and father and sending them to a concentration camp. Hannie went into hiding, unable to continue fighting as her capture would endanger everyone she knew. She remained underground for months, but could not stay hidden indefinitely. On March 21, 1945, with the war nearing its end and Allied forces advancing toward liberation that was only weeks away, Hannie was cycling through Haarlem carrying copies of an illegal communist newspaper and a pistol. She was stopped at a Nazi checkpoint where a search revealed everything, resulting in her arrest. She was transported to a prison in Amsterdam where she endured weeks of interrogation, torture, and solitary confinement. The authorities recognized they had captured someone significant, but required confirmation. Eventually, they observed that her black hair was showing red roots, identifying her as the girl with red hair. Hannie admitted to her assassinations and confessed to her actions, but never revealed a single name. She protected every member of the resistance, including Freddy and Truus, maintaining this protection until her final moments. On April 17, 1945, 18 days before the Netherlands would achieve liberation, with the war effectively over and a known agreement between the Nazis and Dutch resistance to cease executions, Willy Lodges, the Nazi officer in command, disregarded this agreement. He wanted Hannie Schaft executed. 2 Dutch collaborators, traitors to their nation named Martin Cooper and another executioner, were assigned this task. They transported Hannie to the sand dunes of Overveen, the same location where hundreds of resistance fighters had been killed and buried. The first shot grazed Hannie's head, wounding but not killing her. She looked at her executioner and observed that she shot better than he did. The second executioner raised his submachine gun and fired, ending Hannie Schaft's life in those dunes. She was 24 years old. They buried her in a shallow grave so inadequate that her red hair remained visible above the sand. The Netherlands achieved liberation on May 5, 1945, 18 days after Hannie's death. Following the war, 422 bodies were discovered in the Overveen dunes, 421 men and 1 woman, Hannie Schaft. She received a state funeral, and Queen Wilhelmina designated her as the symbol of the resistance. Freddy and Truus, however, received no recognition for decades. The Dutch government ignored them due to their communist affiliations. During the Cold War, anyone with communist connections faced marginalization, erasure from history, and suspicion. The sisters who had risked their lives to save their country were treated as enemies. Truus addressed this through artistic expression, becoming a sculptor and creating memorials to the resistance. She authored a memoir and spoke publicly about their wartime activities. Freddy chose a different approach, stating she coped by marrying and having babies. She married a man named Jan Decker, had 3 children, and attempted to construct a normal life, but the past maintained its presence. She experienced insomnia and unexpected nightmares. Every year on May 4th, Remembrance Day in the Netherlands, she awakened with a sense of dread. When people inquired about the number of people she had killed, she consistently maintained that such questions should not be posed to soldiers. She never disclosed the number, nor did Truus, understanding that certain burdens must be carried alone. For nearly 70 years, Freddy and Truus waited for recognition. Finally, in 2014, Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte invited them to a ceremony where he awarded them the Mobilization War Cross, a military honor for service during World War II. Freddy was 89 years old and Truus was 91. According to Freddy's son, it was the happiest day of his mother's life, as after 69 years, someone finally expressed gratitude. Streets in Harlem were named after them, and their story was documented in books and documentaries, but for most of their lives they had existed in silence, unrecognized and unhonored, despite being teenage girls who killed Nazis and been forgotten by the country they saved. Truus Oversteegen died on June 18, 2016, at the age of 92. Freddy Oversteegen died on September 5, 2018, one day before her 93rd birthday. Throughout her life, Freddy visited Hannie Schaft's grave, leaving red roses for the friend who did not survive. When asked what advice she had for future generations, Truus stated that when making decisions, they must be the right ones, and one must always remain human. These were the words their mother had given them before they joined the resistance, to always stay human. Freddy and Truus killed people, shooting men in forests and on street corners, and observing the life departing from their enemies' eyes. But they maintained their humanity. They experienced emotional distress after every kill, refused to murder children, and carried the psychological weight of their actions throughout their lives. The Nazis killed millions systematically, industrially, and without remorse, losing their humanity entirely. This represents the fundamental difference. During World War II, 90% of the Dutch population attempted to maintain normal lives under Nazi occupation. 5% collaborated with the enemy. 5% joined the resistance. Of that 5%, only a small number of women took up arms, and even fewer killed with their own hands. Freddy Oversteegen was among them, a 14-year-old girl with braided pigtails and a pistol concealed in her bicycle basket.